was the white noise generator.
My name is David Lindbauschu. I'm unwell. I need help. I need help. I just wanted to meet you. I'm unwell. I called 911.
I hope that you
Get up there.
I hope that you'll find the help that you need.
He's crying out for help. And so David came to a Bible study last night with a friend of his. And then his friend invited him to come hear you, Dr. Peterson. And I just want to make sure we don't lose what I think God predestined this moment for us. And I want to just ask
God,
you.
he's a tricky character, you know.
He does. He does. He does put things on that I don't want to skip. I want to make sure we don't miss this moment. Dr. Peterson, we can give David your 12 books, 12 rules in that book. We can give him your next book, which is 12 more rules. And they will be helpful to him. I gave your book to my daughter. They will be helpful to her. I read the books, I see Bible verses attached around them. But without David submitting, bending his knee to Christ, and just saying, I don't want to clean up the behavior or deal with the symptoms. What's broken in me is my heart doesn't belong to the Savior who's sitting on the throne. How does your book go beyond behavioral modification and walk into soul transformation? You got to get on a plane here in a minute and go back to Toronto. But David, so he's crying out for help. He needs someone who's omnipresent. And so can you just help us understand, what does David do once he's done with the last page of your book and he begins to apply these things? Because I know a lot of cleaned up people that are just as messed up as he is. I'm that way sometimes. So can you tell me, how does Christ not just become a perfect model and behavior police, but how does he become who he says he is when he claims to be God in David's life?
Well, we talked about this a little bit last night, about the idea that, and I wouldn't say that my ideas are fully formulated about this. Like, one of the things that Carl Jung pointed out was that when you matured, you needed to replace your father with the Father, right? Because otherwise your father stayed the Father. And that wasn't good, because there's a confusion there between the individual, your father, who of course you have respect for, perhaps, depending, of course, on your father, but hopefully, and the transcendent idea of the Father itself. If you're trying to put yourself together, there's the concept of yourself put together, but then there's the transcendent idea of being put together itself. And the idea of Christ, at least, and I'm speaking to you as a psychologist, and I try to limit myself to that, is that's the embodiment, the symbolic embodiment at minimum of the idea of the human ideal. It's the highest ideal that we can conceive of. You know, if you go into an old cathedral and you look at the dome of the cathedral, and that's the sky, that's the cosmos, and you see Christ portrayed on the ceiling as Pantocrator, as creator of the world, the idea there is something like, consciousness and soul participates in the ongoing co-generation of creation. And that your goal as a human being is to participate in that creation in the most ethical manner possible. So imagine it this way. We can think about this very practically. So you wake up in the morning, your consciousness reemerges on the stage of existence. And what you're confronted by is the potential of the day. This is something that's referred to in the Sermon on the Mount, to concentrate on the day. But so we'll use the day as our unit of analysis. You see the day as a set of possible pathways. You could do this, you could do that, you could not do this, you could not do that. And your conscience speaks to you too, almost immediately, I would say, upon awakening. Here's something I need to do today to keep things in order. Here's something I need not to do today to keep things in order. Here's my set of obligations that I need to undertake so that when I go to sleep tonight, I can sleep with a clear conscience and things are better than they might have otherwise been. And so what you see in front of you is the potential of the world. And to me, you see, that's akin to the potential that God confronted in Genesis at the beginning of time. That's the meaning of that story, is that there's a potential that is confronted by an attitude. And the attitude that is appropriate in relationship to that confrontation is the attitude of the Logos. And the Logos is something like courage. That's one of its primary attributes, and truth. That's the other. Now there's more, but I would say if you had to boil it down to two, it would be courage and truth. And so there's this notion. See, what happens in Genesis is God employs the Logos to generate order out of potential. And every time he does that, he says, and it was good. And the idea there is that if you confront the potential that's in front of you with truth and courage, that what you do is you take what could be and you transform it into what is. And you do that and you transform it into what is that's good. And you have that is you. That's your soul. That's the thing that, as Genesis points out, that gives you that affinity with God. The fact that you're made in the image of God is the fact that you have that capability, and that capability to take that potential and to make the world out of it is also dependent on your ethical choices.